This is the third and final vlog in the Practical Techniques in Strength and Conditioning module, and it is concerning the coaching process. What we will be looking at is the characteristics of what makes up the coaching process, along with a few definitions. We will look at my coaching philosophy and a little bit around my processes before we look at a session from myself with an athlete and we critically analyse and evaluate it. Firstly, what is the coaching process? Lyle and Cushion in 2017 defined this as the purposeful improvement of competition performance achieved through a planned programme of preparation and competition. On the right hand side of the screen you can see the 4 pillars as described by Roy et al. Within the coaching process. They are planning, intervention, assessment and adjustment, and these work in a cyclical fashion. In the next slides we will look at the 4 pillars as described previously and how they link into my coaching philosophy. Now, it is worth noting that the coaching process will be different and distinctive in all cases and can be determined by the setting, the athlete's aspirations and the commitments of the coach as per Lyle and Cushion 2017. Here we are looking at the planning stage, and I believe that the coach's knowledge is of vital importance in this process. It is not just the professional knowledge such as the lifts and techniques that are used, but it's also the interpersonal knowledge of the athlete. For example, the athlete's previous injury history, techniques and communication styles that they may have found beneficial before, and the relationship that you build with them. Next is the intervention stage. Now this has a particular focus on the athlete that we are coaching. As an example, ensuring that the appropriate exercise or load for the athlete, making sure that it is individualised, ensuring that the appropriate communication techniques are utilised, which we'll go into further later on. Next is the assessment pillar. Now I believe this revolves around competency, and within competency we look for outcomes of goals and objective-based criteria, technical work in regards to completing the skill, and also confidence within the weight room or within the field of play whilst completing the skill. The final part of the coaching process is the adjustment or review phase. This involves analysis of what has just happened within the assessment phase, providing constructive feedback and also using that feedback to forward plan for the next planning stage. Communication is the key aspect that we are going to be looking for during my session with the athlete. We'll be looking at how I explain my programming to the athlete. We are going to be looking at how I communicate with the athlete during the technical work, and then any other additional body language that may be present. Just to provide some context before we move on to the analysis of the coaching session, this athlete is currently going through a period of rehabilitation following an injury. We are coming towards the end of the season and thus have no fixtures left. The athlete has had multiple injuries in the last 12 months. Myself and the athlete have worked together for a period of around 3 years, and I would class this athlete as having some experience within the weight room. So they're not a beginner, but they're also not an expert either.
Cool, so today we're going to do posterior chain. So as we go through, we'll go single leg load and lift as we normally do.
Yeah.
We've got a few other exercises. We'll go
At the start of every session, it's important to go through the programming of the session so that the athlete understands the reasoning as to why they are doing things. As I work in a rehabilitation session, this will also allow the athlete to ask questions regarding their injury and how specific programs or exercises will help speed up and optimally load either muscles, joints or tendons. An example of the program can be seen on screen now.
pretty standard stuff with your maintenance, isometrics, etc. And then we'll go through your daily rehab in terms of isometrics, concentric based stuff, and then we'll go from there. I know this is pretty self-explanatory, we've done it before, but does everything make sense?
Yeah, awesome.
Perfect. What I'll do is I'll go through the exercise and we'll demonstrate as well.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Have a sit up, we're going to do some isometric based stuff just to maintain your adductors. Okay, although we have a knee injury, it's important that we maintain long lever and short lever adductors. Okay, so the first one, ball, feet together, pop it in between, and all we're going to do is just squeeze gently. Okay, have a go for me.
Although I did provide an explanation as to why the athlete needs to complete this isometric exercise, I didn't in fact give them any sets or reps before they had started the exercise. While this isn't too much of an issue as this is an isometric, had this been an eccentric exercise with large amounts of weight, the athlete could have been exposed to a higher risk of either re-injury or susceptible to a new injury. Furthermore, my body language and positioning to view the athlete completing this exercise is not optimal. Although I have lowered myself to their level, it does not provide me with the best vantage point to see, for example, if they are arching their back or there are any other compensatory movements. Initially, I provide good sound reasoning as to why we are completing a kickstand RDL with straps as opposed to completing a single leg RDL. This is ultimately so that the athlete can load heavier and they do not have to worry about the balance element.
Okay, that's what we're going to do for a kickstand. Chest stays nice and high, kick that foot out backwards. That's important, it's not too far behind, not too far out to the side. Okay, there's your kickstand. From there, chest stays up, you hinge, your bottom slightly goes backwards, you feel it slow down, fast up.
Whilst completing a demonstration of this RDL, I can be heard to be using an internal cue. Schutz in 2016 suggests that external cueing can in fact lead to an improvement in performance and learning from the athlete. On reflection of this, I would probably look to use both internal and external cues in the future. An example of an external cue in this context could be talking to the athlete about what the bar is doing whilst completing the exercise as opposed to what they are doing. For example, allowing the bar to travel down their shin as opposed to pushing your hips back. We can now analyse my communication and behaviour while the athlete is completing the exercise.
Good, fast up. Keep your chest up, look forward. Good. Good. The only thing I'd say is try kicking your foot a little bit further out to the side.
Here I am seeing giving the athlete concurrent feedback as opposed to delayed feedback. Miller et al. In 2011 suggests that providing concurrent feedback while the athlete is completing the exercise can be confusing.
So, teach me how to do it.
So you need to make sure you have not too far wide or behind you,
Yeah?
and have it just wide so you can maintain balance.
So is that any good?
No,
No? Is that any good?
no,
So where do you want it?
just about there.
About there?
And then chest high,
Yeah?
and then slow on the way down.
Yeah?
Go softening, and then explosive up.
Happy?
Next, I get the athlete to teach me how to complete the movement. Whilst this can be effective, it can also put the athlete under pressure as they have not had time to process the information you've initially given them.
Cool, right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to do some trunk development, just a little bit of supplementary work. Obviously your trunk's really important with actions with the football. So I've given you the categories, I want you to pick. So pick one from each, and then we're going to do one additional exercise which you can pick anything from core.
Okay.
Alright?
So high power press and suitcase carry.
So plank, pull-off press, suitcase carry, perfect. And then you've got one more choice, any exercise for trunk core development.
Russian twist.
The video we have just seen shows me discussing and allowing the athlete to have some input into their core development program. While this does buy athlete buy-in and therefore increases rapport, if the athlete selects the exercises that are least challenging, then it may take away from the aims and objectives of that element of the session. If we look back at the three areas that we were looking to analyse from the slide earlier in the presentation, we can see that I've achieved some aspects of this, but also need to work and continue to develop on others. In relation to the first target, which was looking at my communication whilst explaining the programming to the athlete, I believe that I demonstrated a high level as we went through the program at the start of the session, and also demonstrated high levels of communication skills by giving responsive questioning. In relation to the other two areas we were looking at, which are communicating with the athlete while they're completing technical work and my body language, I believe these are still development areas, as there were some key points that we picked up on review. Ultimately, using the correct communication styles for the correct athlete is important, and it can in fact correlate to how successful the program is.